Did it. All right, starting number 11 on the chapter 13 study guide. In general, the psychosexual stages of development are talking about how our personality develops throughout our life. So this is Freud's explanation for how we become who we are. He says we go through a series of stages. This is his most controversial theory. I didn't tell you, but he got a lot of flack for his ideas when he was around. Lots of criticism. He was attacked. He was banned from teaching because he talked about things that were socially unacceptable. There's a lot of sex and aggression in his topics, and you're going to see that in this part right here. And it's, who did he get in trouble for this? But he held fast, man. He thought he was right. He was not going to change his mind. And the fact that everybody got mad just said to him that he was absolutely right. Okay, that just proved his point. So everybody was in denial, using reaction formation and getting really upset when it's because he was hitting the nail on the head, according to him. So that's what number 11 is, the psychosexual stages. At each stage, there's a body part that feels good and it gets all the attention. And how our parents handle that desire for that body part will impact us for the rest of our lives. If they mishandle it, we can become fixated and stuck at that stage and leave some psychic energy there. And forever, our whole life will be changed because we're always we're still stuck in that stage. It's called fixated. So you may see some behaviors that you have that you could go, oh, it's from the oral stage. Like my continual drinking of water. Okay, number 12. Now we're starting to get into the details. 12, the oral stage. And remember, all of this is body parts. So 0 to 1, if you've rounded a 0 to 1-year-old, you probably agree that they stick everything in their mouth. They seem to be obsessed and preoccupied with their mouth. So it's the oral stage. Your mouth gives them satisfaction. How parents handle this, specifically moms, because we're in the late 1800s, and even today, moms are the main caregivers, but definitely back then. So how mom handled this is a big deal. Does mom allow them to satisfy their oral needs, or does mom continually, stop that, don't get that out of your mouth, don't put that in your mouth, don't give them their pacifier or whatever. If they overindulge or they restrain, they deprive, then you're going to have long-term effects for who you are today. And we're going to say you're orally fixated. You're in the oral stage. Okay. So it's one extreme or the other. Either over-gratified or denied is the problem. If it's handled kind of in between in the balance, which you find a lot in psychology, if things in the middle are healthy, things on either extreme are abnormal, then it's okay. So one extreme or the other. Some of the ways that we show oral fixation is by using our mouth as a weapon and attacking people. So if you're really good with put downs and verbal aggression, then we would say you're stuck in the oral stage. Usually it means that you were over-gratified. And that could be where every time you cried, your mom shoved something in your mouth to satisfy you. If you were denied, then you're always trying to still meet the need for oral stimulation. So you might smoke, you might overeat, you might overdrink, you might bite your nails, you might chew on things because you're still satisfying that oral need. Well, that got a little bit of attention, but the next one got a lot of attention. That's the anal stage, you can imagine, right? B, anal stage. That's 2 to 3. We're doing pie training. Today, we say pie training is a big deal, but it's because Freud said it was a big deal psychologically. If you take your kid to the doctor at this age, they're going to give you papers that talk about how not to punish too severely for accidents, and it's normal to have accidents, and they give you all the psychology of it. That's from Freud. Freud thought how your parents handled pie training will affect you for the rest of your life. Are you a very neat, orderly, organized, clean person? You have a place for everything and everything in its place? Are you very particular about how things are and cleanliness? You might be stuck in the anal stage. Yep, because you got punished too severely for making a mess. So you learn to be neat, be tidy, be clean, be organized. You're tight, you're stingy, you don't like spend money. You're rigid, scheduled, programmed. Then we got the other extreme. If you are praised too much for going potty, then you are messy and you give everything away and you're sloppy. So if you have a really messy room and your parents are on you, tell them it's their fault. They praised you too much during potty training. You're stuck in the anal stage. You can't help it. We call people anal. Haven't you ever heard that before? Like in a joke or on TV or whatever? They'll call people, usually they use anal or anal retentive for the people who are like really neat, orderly, scheduled, rigid kind of people. So, not the overly generous, messy ones. I don't know why, because they both could be called anal. You can watch The Odd Couple. It's a show from like the 60s about these two roommates. One was excessively neat and the other one was excessively messy. They were both anal, but just different extremes. C though, oh my gosh, 12C, that's what got him trouble. Now talking about bathroom stuff was so inappropriate then, and that got him some flack, but the really big one was C, phallic stage, 4 to 7 years of age. Yikes. All right, so we have body parts that are a focus. We have the mouth, we have the anus. Now it's the penis. That's what a phallus is. So he gives all his attention to the penis. The focus of pleasure for a body part is their own genitals, males or females, but it's their own, not somebody else's. They're 4 to 7. They don't know any different yet, but they do know differences in the sexes, and they're interested in this. And they form ideas about what these parts are for and what happens to them. So first, we'll talk about what happens with the boys. They go through an experience during the phallic stage called the Oedipus complex. You can look this up online. Oedipal complex. It is a time in a little boy's life, 4 to 7, where his affection for his mother becomes sexual as much as he knows what sex is. He wants to be mom's boyfriend or girlfriend. He wants to marry mom. He gets jealous of dad. But he realizes that dad is big and strong. And if dad finds out, he could hurt him. And see, he's just discovered this wonderful thing that he owns called a penis. And his biggest fear is that dad is going to find out that he wants mom and wants to bump dad off, and he'll castrate him. I know castration really means just remove testicles, but we extrapolate that to removing a penis. So his fear that dad's going to find out and castrate him causes him to give up mom. Instead, hold your friends close and your enemies closer. He decides to hang with dad. He decides to buddy up with dad, be like dad, want to do what dad does, emulates him, tries to shave, uses tools. Before then, he was more of a mama's boy. But 4 to 7, 4 to 7, that probably looked really big crawling across there. He changes and he starts to want to hang with dad and be like dad and dad's buddy. All this is coming from the fear that he had that dad will find out that he wants mom. Okay. You can imagine this did not sit well with people. Now, so when he's hanging with dad, he's taking on dad's beliefs of what's right and wrong. So dad says, this is how you treat people, and this is, you don't lie or whatever. And little boy goes, okay, dad. And that is the development of his superego, his conscience. His superego comes from his dad. So whatever his dad's superego is, that will be the son's superego. So ladies, if you want your sons to be moral, you better hook up with a moral man, because his morals will only be as good as his father's, according to Freud. Okay, it's called identifying or identification with dad. And that is the important resolution for the Oedipal complex. We have to have that happen. We need the boy to start hanging with dad and take on dad's value system. So he has a value system, because prior to that, he was just an id. Okay, and we know the teeter-totter, id by itself does not work well. So he hangs with dad, takes on dad's beliefs and values, and develops his superego from dad. Whew, done. That's what happens with boys. So he develops an attraction to mom. wants to bump off dad, realizes dad might castrate him if he finds out. That fear, called castration anxiety, is so strong that it causes the boy to give up mom and start hanging like dad. And hopefully he'll marry a woman like mom someday. Haven't you ever heard that you marry your parents? That's coming from Freud. That's all this stuff, the Oedipal complex. All right. What about girls? Freud was pressured into coming up with a theory about girls. It's very strange. Most of his patients were women, but most of his original theories are about men. Another ant. This is not good. I'm going to have to spray. Where are they coming from? There's no food up here. All right. Okay, so he came up with something for girls. And girls, you're probably not going to like this. Most women do not like Freud's theories about women. They think he doesn't know what he's talking about. And actually, he does say in his writings that he doesn't know what he's talking about. It's kind of funny. So here's the girl's story. The girl develops an attraction to dad also, but for a different reason. The girl develops an attraction to dad because of an active rejection of mom. And the reason she rejects mom is because she has learned the difference between boys and girls, and that boys have a penis and she does not. And she thinks that there's something wrong with her because of it. She feels inferior. She has something called penis envy. She feels inferior because she does not have one. She looks down and says, what happens to mine? What happened to mine? How come I didn't get one? She thinks maybe the boy thinks she got it taken off as punishment. The punishment he was worried about, right? But she just feels inferior. She feels like a less of a human. And he thought women were inferior because they didn't have a penis. So she looks at mom and goes, oh, you don't have one. She used to think mom was the bomb, but now she realizes mom doesn't have one. And so she's like, bleh. But dad, you got it going on. You got what I need. So she buddies up with dad and wants to be with dad, wants to marry dad, wants to bump off mom. So she ends up in the same position that the boy did, and that is wanting to be with her opposite sex parent, okay, in a relationship kind of way, sexual kind of way, as far as they know. Want to marry a man like dad or marry dad someday. When she plays with her doll baby, she pretends they're her and her dad's doll babies, babies. So she ends up in the same thing, wanting to be with dad. But then she realizes, just like the boy does, that mom might find out and get her in trouble. Now, mom's not going to castrate her because there's nothing to castrate. Mom's not going to love her anymore. So the boy has castration anxiety, and the girl has loss of love anxiety. So she's worried mom's not going to love her anymore, and that propels her to give up dad. She'll marry a man like dad someday. She'll look for a man like that, but she's not going to marry. She's going to give him up right now. Instead, go hang out with mom, just like the boy did with dad. She's going to hang with mom, cook with mom, dress in her heels, try to put makeup on, and take on mom's value system of right and wrong. Her superego comes from her mother. Boys come from their dads, girls come from their moms, so same sex. She's identifying with mom, being like mom, wants to be like mom. So then again, the identification, it's the same thing. They end up in the same spot. The very beginning is different. Girls have penis envy to get into it, but it's the same thing in the end. Now, there's a special little thing, though, about girls and boys. The fear that the boy has of his dad is what causes him to be like his dad and identify with dad and get his superego. Same thing. The fear the girl has of mom is what causes her to be like mom, identify with mom, and develop her superego. Which one do you think is a stronger fear? Now, Freud was a dude. Castration anxiety or not being loved by mom anymore? Right? It's a much greater fear to be castrated. The boy's more scared of dad than the girl is of mom. So, the boy is more motivated to hold your friends closer, your enemies closer, and to buddy up with dad than the girl is of mom. So she can listen to what mom says and goes, I ain't going to listen to you all the way because you can't do that much to me. So she doesn't take on all of mom's superegos. So therefore, women have a weaker superego than men. Well, remember that teeter-totter. We need even side, id and superego. Everybody has a big giant id. We're born with it. We need a big giant superego. If girls have a little weak superego, their teeter-totter is going to stay on the id side. What are they going to be like as women? We're going to be impulsive, childish, hedonistic, just do what we want. Ooh, pretty shoes. And that's the way Freud saw women. Very id-driven, not very big conscious. Oh, that doesn't sit well with a lot of women. But he says it's just the way it is. Boys are more scared of dad, so they have more reason to hang with him and take on his value system. Whew. That's a lot for that stage. And Freud said it's a huge stage. It's tumultuous. It's so upsetting that the next stage, D, dog, 12D, that we go through, is a quiet phase. We need rest after that. 7 to 11 is called the latency period, or latency stage. Something is latent, it's hidden. And nothing goes on here, thank goodness. No body part, we suppress it all or repress it all. And we have no interest in any body parts right now. We're having friends and we're doing school and we're doing sports. It kind of gets put to the side. It's just, we need a break. 12E is the last stage. We should all be at this stage, genital stage, 11 plus years of age. And the focus comes back on genitals, but it's not ours, it's somebody else's, typically the opposite sex. Now, Freud had some ideas on homosexuality that are very modern. He does not believe that it was a disorder, even though we had it in our disorder book until the 70s. He just said something just didn't go typically during development. But I guess, you should be fixated here, so. If you have problems in relationships, like romantic relationships, he would say it goes back to that Oedipal complex. Like if you don't have a dad or if you didn't have a mom to identify with, then you're not going to have a superego. And you're always going to be a daddy's girl because you never had to give him up. You're always going to be a mama's boy because you didn't have a dad to argue, to worry about, to give her up. So that's kind of interesting. But they'll come out in those adult relationships. Whew. Okay, that's all Freud. That's all we do with Freud in here. It really, it takes a long time. We spend most of the time on there, but that's all we're doing of him, okay? Number 13. Now we're moving on to some other people. Still the psychodynamic theory, but other people. There were some other followers of Freud. They liked what he had to say. Some people did. But then they went on to add some of their own ideas to the theory, and he did not like that. So all these people we're going to talk about here left, okay? This next one, number 13, is Carl Jung, Jung, and they were best buds. But then Jung felt free to travel the world and study Eastern philosophy and some other ideas, and he came up with a lot of new thoughts, and Freud did not accept them. So they had to go their own ways. One of the things that Jung gave us, Jung, is the collective unconscious. He liked the idea of the unconscious, that there were things going on that we weren't aware of, but Freud talked about an individual one, so it's unique for all of us. What's in there is unique for us. Jung believed that there was a group unconscious that we all share as all humans. And he traveled around the world a lot, so he saw a lot of people from different cultures. And he found a lot of similarities in those cultures. A lot of similar heroes. Mothers mothered the same way. There were some stereotypical ways of behaving in situations that he said cannot be explained by teaching each other and being around each other because travel wasn't very big. So there has to be another explanation. And he thought there was a shared unconscious that all of humanity has. And when we're born, we inherit all these lessons and all these experiences that we've all had as humans. Get put in this collective pot and we inherit it. So that's how we can explain similarities of all humans, even though we haven't been around each other enough. He's very mystical. Number 14, still him. He talked about introvert and extrovert. Most of these people have childhood experiences, and they use that to come up with their theories. He was a very lonely kid. He was very strange. He had different ways of thinking, and so he didn't have a lot of friends, and people thought he was pretty strange. Well, of course, he's not going to come up with theory that makes himself look strange. He's going to make himself look, normal. He came up with the word introvert and extrovert that we hear so much about. The way he uses it is different. He talked about where we get our energy from. The introvert gets energy from solitary activities, from being by themselves. If they're around people too much, they're exhausted. They get worn out. So they need to have some downtime, just alone. And when they do, vroom, charge up their batteries and they feel good again. Extroverts, opposite. They get energized by being around other people. Don't put them alone for too long. They'll end up asleep. They really get their energy from others. It revs them up. So that's introvert and extrovert, according to Jung, who came up with it. 15 is another guy that was a follower and friend of Freud, but then came up with new ideas that Freud didn't accept, and then he left. He stormed off. He got ticked. Adler, this guy got ticked off because he's very sensitive. He takes everything personally. That's his issue in his life, and it comes out in his theories, and that's why he left Freud. I mean, Freud treated him just like everybody else in that when he came up with new stuff, he poked at it, said, I don't think you're right. But Adler took offense to it and stormed off and never saw him again. So some of the things that he gave us is birth order. He believed that the order you're born into your family affects your personality because your parents treat you differently. If you're the oldest or the baby or the only girl or the only boy, you're treated differently. And that will impact you. You can go read, he has a whole book on birth order. People still believe in this, and it's so easy to test. So there's a lot of information on there. But his original idea made the middle child the best one. That was him. So the middle children were the best ones, where like today's idea, we worry about the poor middle child being neglected, and it's a bad position. But he didn't say that. So you get differences of opinions on birth order impact, but definitely the idea that birth order impacts you has been widely accepted. It came from him. And it came from him because he had an older brother who was really successful, and then a younger brother who was very competitive. And so he saw this playing out, these dynamics. So came up with this idea to explain. Number 16, another issue he had is he was very sickly as a kid, and he wasn't very attractive. Jung and Freud were tall and charismatic and good looking. And Adler was short and dumpy and round, glasses, sloppy, just not very distinguished. But he had been sickly as a kid, and so he always felt inferior, that he was not as well made as everybody else and as good as everybody else. So he always had a chip on his shoulder. But of course, he's going to say that everybody feels inferior, and we spend all of our life trying to compensate for this. And the more successful you are, actually, the worse you feel about yourself. And you have to go to these extremes in achievement to prove that you're worthy. So, someone who brags a lot, you often think, they must not feel very good about themselves. They've got to keep pumping themselves up. That comes from Adler. And he talked about compensation. We're all trying to compensate for feelings of inferiority. We all feel inferior, not just him. Of course, he's going to make everybody be like him, right? And him be normal. So that's another idea he gave us. The last person in the psychodynamic theory, number 17 that we talk about, is the only girl. And I know her name looks like it's horny, but it's Horney. That's how it's pronounced. Poor thing. I think you have a bad last name. So she liked Freud, except for his theories about women. She had an issue with that. She came along a good bit after Freud, but she studied his beliefs, like the unconscious, all that kind of stuff, childhood. But she had a couple things to add. That's what all these people are doing, adding to it. One of the things she added was number 17, the 3 ways that people handle anxiety. And she said you either move toward, and you attack, and you're aggressive, and you have no problem with conflict, and you go into conflict, and you go into battle a lot. That's how you handle conflict. You head on, man, let's just get it done. Or you move against, and you try to pacify the person and try to make it okay, and you're always trying to solve the problem, and I don't want conflict. You try to avoid, I don't want conflict. Or you so you try to settle it. Okay, or you move away. So move against, move toward, move against, or move away. Move toward is let's just get this in. Let's put up our dukes. Move against is let's try to calm down. Let's try to calm down. And move away is just leaving the situation. You just avoid conflict, period. The reason she came up with these conflict theories is because there was a lot of conflict in her house. Her mom and dad fought all the time. They eventually divorced. They fought all the time. So her mom was a very feminist and her dad was a chauvinist. And so they argued a lot. So she put this into her ideas. That's what she focused on, studied how people handle conflicts. Number 18, one of the things she said about Freud. Oh, Freud, that penis envy, you have got that all wrong. Men have womb envy. Men are envious of women's ability to have babies and nurse them. They're envious of us. That's what she believed. Number 19. Okay, we're done with psychodynamic. This should just really be called done. Okay. That's all for psychodynamic. It really should be labeled. I'm going to put that in there. I probably won't remember to upload it with that though, so sorry. So number 19, trait theories, different set of theories. Chuck all that stuff about childhood and unconscious and the Oedipal complex and everything, doesn't matter. This theory says we don't care where your personality comes from. We're not going to attempt to bother with that. All we want to be able to do is give you a personality test and measure you on certain kinds of traits or characteristics for your personality. That way, your employer can make a decision to hire you. The dating site can match you up with your best person. It's just a theory that says that you have a certain number of traits or characteristics to your personality, and we can test them and measure them and put you on a scale. Then we can make quick decisions about you. So it's just a fast, easy way to get information about somebody's personality. We believe that personality can be quantified or understood in terms of characteristics or traits. That's why it's called trait theory. Most of the time when you're describing somebody, you're using the trait theory to describe their personality. Number 20, so there's all different theories that have different numbers of traits. Some personality theories think that there are innumerable number of traits. We can't even measure them. There's so many different traits in the human personality. Others think there's 64. Then there's some that think there are 32, 16. And the one your book uses is 5, the big 5. So there's 5 traits to everybody's personality, and we can give you a test and measure you on each of those continuums. So they're just asking you to list them for number 20. Agreeableness, that's just kind of like how easy you are to get along with others. Are you grumpy or are you pretty happy? Extroversion, that's how sociable you are. Do you like to be around others? Do you not really like to be around others? Openness, how willing are you to try new things? How hesitant or cautious you are? Neuroticism, that's how emotional you are. How easily upset are you? Are you pretty calm and steady, or do you get up or out very easily? Conscientiousness, how much attention to detail are you? Are you a big picture person, or are you a little detail person? So those are the 5 big traits. How do we use them? 21, just said, jobs, dating. Anytime we need to make a decision about you, about your personality. Whew, number 22. This is another theory. This should be called humanistic theory. Okay, this is another theory of personality. The humanistic theory overall believed that you are basically good, that you come into this world with great qualities. Everybody has it, and we're all going to be this wonderful people. We all have this potential if we're just given the right kind of support. All we need is the right kind of support. We don't need a lot of guidance and training because we already have it within us to be wonderful. We're all a rose, and if we get the right kind of soil and water and sunlight, we'll all be this big, beautiful flower. It's a direct reaction to the psychodynamic theory, because the psychodynamic theory, with all that sex and aggression, it just left a sour taste in some people's mouths. So they said, no, we're basically good. That's just so wrong. What a negative view of society. So number 22, unconditional positive regard. That's the typical word unconditional love that everybody hears of, but it started with unconditional positive regard. Adler believed that, that's who this person is that we're talking about. No, not Adler. Rogers. Rogers believed that all we need is love, right? Support. acceptance. And if we have acceptance, we will meet the wonderful qualities that we all have inside of us. If we are given, number 23, conditional positive regard, then that means we have certain criteria we have to meet in order to be seen as valuable. And so we spend our life trying to meet those requirements that other people put on us. Maybe we have to always make A's. We have to be funny. We have to always win, or whatever the message is. And we don't become these wonderful people because we're spending all this time trying to meet these characteristics that have been put on us, these conditions that's been given to us. Number 24, Carl Rogers believes that it's the contrast between how we see ourselves and how we really are, how we want to be and how we really are, that causes us anxiety. It's not the unconscious and the id, superego stuff. It's when we get conflicting messages. We see ourselves one way, but then society shows us something else. We want to be a certain way, but then we act out differently than that. Maybe we have an ideal way that we want to be, or how we think of ourselves. I think of myself as being very honest. So if I'm dishonest, it would be incredibly anxiety provoking for me because it's not how I see myself. And then number 25, finally, this should be a different theory. This should be called behavioral theory. And it just says, it's so simple, our personality is learned. You know that chapter 5, classical and operant conditioning? Yep. That's what's causing us to be who we are today. Our personality is learned. We start off as a blank slate. Everything we go through makes us who we are today. So that's the behavioral theory or the learning theory. Whew. I'm exhausted. That was an hour straight of talking between two videos. I'm glad you can pause it sometimes.